everything you see from there over will be wetlands.
Will be wetlands.
Yeah.
How?
Through the reconfiguration of this creek.
Oh, there's
a lot
creek
of it. A lot of it's floods anyway. These holes are very low lying through here. They always stay wet.
Yep.
That's the first hole in Caracong over there, which frequently is a marshland anyway.
Right. Was the original first hole. Will continue to be the original first hole. In the tournament configuration that they have as a composite course, though, it's number 5, and we'll explain a little bit more about that later. But it would play as a long par 4 from a tee over here at about 420 yards. For regular play, it'll still be a 5 for everybody else here.
Okay.
The restoration of the historic routing, as well as the reconfiguration of the Caracong land into 9 holes. But what that then permits is a tournament configuration course, which utilizes 14 of the holes on the Cobbs Creek side and 4 new holes that we'll hopefully take a ride up and look at later up through the Caracong area. That would be basically about a 7,200 yard par 70 tournament worthy golf course, according to Gil and Jim's projection.
Okay.
The tournament course is actually starting out at City Line Avenue.
Right.
So you play number 5, and then you're going to cross the street, and you're going to play a big par 5 up the hill,
Which is now the Caracong.
which is now Caracong. But these are all completely new golf holes. This is reconfigured land. A lot of the Caracong course is going to be turned into wetlands, but there's going to be 4 holes on the tournament course, playing over there, culminating up here across the road, across the creek, across the road, which we'll show you where the tee will be on. To start the back nine. What's going to be done is a creation of and I'm going to try to get this right, but it's either a 501(c)(3) or a 501(c)(3). I'm not sure what the right nonprofit, essentially fund that is going to be, initially funded for the construction work and for the creation of the golf course, but after that will be in perpetuity for continued maintenance and to preserve the property. And it's being modeled after, I guess, a project that happened in Philadelphia that I'm not aware of, that was a reclamation of old grass tennis courts and a...
Here, you can see where the main creek runs. This has always been a problematic area for water.
Right.
And you can sort of see the area where when the creek really gets flooded, this whole green gets flooded. And it just seems as though the creek wants to go that way as well. And I think that's what the plans are, is to simply have the creek go around the green, and we'll have an island green here on
the project, how we got involved with this. Right? So I'd always played different courses and kind of based on some of the books that have been out in the last 20, 30 years on architectural history, was always fascinated to investigate the architectural story of the golf courses. And this place was always somewhat of a mystery, because even though the rumor was Hugh Wilson had designed it, there was not really a clear documented story that anybody had ever uncovered before. Even in Jim Finnegan's book, it talked about the fact that the golf course had been reconfigured at some point, but also, as it turned out later, was kind of incorrect in some of the assumptions made. Some people said that back where the apartment buildings are along 10 and 11 used to be part of the golf course. Some people said where the driving range today is on City Line Avenue was part of the golf course. We didn't know. We kind of were curious. So one of the things I did, and this goes back to August of 2007, I sent an email to the Hagley Museum. I knew their Dallin Aerial collection had a lot of the old golf courses in the area, and I asked them, do they have anything on Cobbs Creek? Well, my email went unanswered, seemingly 6-8 weeks, and all of a sudden one day in my email I get an email that has 6 or 8 attachments on it with aerial photographs of the golf course from that time period. And although it was hard to tell exactly what was going on, one thing that appeared evident was that all the green sites that I knew that are here today were there then, back in the 20s and 30s. So we did a little bit more digging. I got on Golf Club Atlas and started a thread, and some people who were here, some old timers and others, and we eventually pieced together, and then Joe started digging in Villanova and just pulled together this kind of amazing story that not only was Hugh Wilson involved, but George Crump of Pine Valley, and and basically a committee of them and 6 other fellows who were prominent Philadelphia golfers at the time were really asked by the Golf Association of Philadelphia to create this course. And they did it for a specific reason. At the time, Philadelphia in inner city championships was really getting their butt kicked by Chicago and Boston and New York. And one of the reasons that people around Philadelphia thought that was so was that there weren't really any championship caliber golf courses in the area. So they felt that, you know, a championship course would develop championship golfers. And really 3 courses in this area kind of germinated out of that whole thinking. One was Marion East, one was Pine Valley. And actually this course was built with the idea that it was going to be as difficult, at least in terms of, you know, the physical challenge of playing around, as any of a private golf course would be. And at the time it was. I mean, it was really a dramatically difficult golf course. If you think back to 1916, playing some of these holes with the water carries and hillside carries. But over time, it did in fact do what they had originally wanted as a goal, which is to develop championship golfers here. By the 1920s, a fellow by the name of Joe Cobbs won the U.S. Pub Links. He was an Italian immigrant who played here basically every day, worked down a restaurant at 69th Street Station, spent the rest of his time barely sleeping and practicing here. So as we started uncovering and Joe started pulling these just amazing articles together, and we started pulling this together in a chronology, the one thing that became evident was if somebody really wanted to do this, they could go back to the way the golf course was. What we discovered was that in the 1950s, in the Cold War, the U.S. government co-opted a piece of the property, basically 15% of the acreage of this golf course, to build a Nike missile site. And that and once they did that, that took away some of the width of the old golf course. So they reconfigured the holes in a way that still exists today, but really kind of narrowed the golf course, and in some ways, as we'll see later, kind of take away some of the most dramatic and best holes of the original golf course. And what occurred to us over time was that if somebody was really inclined to do so and had the money to do so, it was possible to reclaim the original routing of this golf course and really reclaim what had been historically almost from inception till almost the Depression, really recognized as, if not the best, one of the very top public golf courses in the country. You know, looking around yourself, where do you think you went on the next hole, on the 6th hole?
You mean now or in the old days?
In the old days.
So now your camera's showing how it's playing right now.
Right.
Par 3,
par 3, the green
110,
over here.
120 yards. Which green do you think you originally played to from this tee?
I don't know. You mean back that way? Or where?
You keep panning around and sort of up on top of the carts. The par 4 that ran right up the hill playing to today's
16th green.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now we had a 97-year-old caddy out here who's since passed away, and he said we used to you know, go up the hill after the 5th green and really kind of pray that their guy made the carry, because otherwise they had to come back down for their ball and then go back up again. It's not quite as steep as it looks to the carry, because they've built today's 16th tee up on the back of it, which would be, you know, pulled down the hill a bit. But it was still a pretty significant uphill carry, and would be today. When we had Jim Wagner out here, actually, one of the first days when we brought him out here to say, Jim, are we crazy or not? Can you take a walk around and look at the old course with us and tell us if you think it had value as a restoration effort? And one of the things he mentioned when we walked this hole is he said it's kind of like the 18th hole at Riviera, which at that point we thought maybe we're not as crazy, and so went from there.
We're standing on what tee?
Well, this used to be the 9th tee. Today it serves the par 5 14th, which is a hole that got reconfigured and kind of squeezed in here. But it used to play from here to the hilltop green that today is number 7. And the way the course would then go in the past, from there was about a 220-yard par 3 to the green we're playing to today on 14. That was the 8th hole. Or, I'm sorry, the 10th hole. And then 11, from the stone building just adjacent to that green, would play up. None of these trees along here existed back then. Would play up to what is today's 15th green as a par 5, with kind of a low road and a high road. And then you'd come over here, which is was at the time one of the prettiest holes is a drop shot par 3.
Which you can see.
Which you kind of get a sense of from up here. It was a drop shot par 3 to what was one of the first island greens in the country. There used to be a little tributary of the creek that ran around the right side of the green. It was kind of a kidney-shaped configuration. From there, you'd cross the creek and play all the way up through what is today on the far side City Line Avenue driving range to the 13th hole.
Beyond those trees.
Right, and then wrap back up around the property, playing today's 9th and 10th as 14 and 15. Today's 11th is 16, and out the property. So in one swoop, although what they did when they lost the area of the driving range for the missile range was kind of a creative reconfiguration. Losing that much of the overall width of the course forced holes kind of like this one they're a bit constrained today and maybe just don't feel exactly natural, both in terms of the green orientation to the hole themselves as well as what was originally intended. 6 holes in all were impacted with the changes that all took place in the 1950s. And although they as I mentioned, were creative in the way they reconfigured it without having to do additional construction and still maintain an 18-hole golf course. It's arguable that probably 6 of the best holes originally were affected in a way that, maybe today's 7th hole and 9th were a wash, but most of the original holes were very good ones and very notable ones. And so overall, the changes to the golf course were really to the negative.
It certainly changed the personality of the course dramatically, virtually overnight. Is there any way to know what the reaction at the time was by the regulars of the course?
It's interesting. We've done a good deal of research. I found one article where they were actually somebody was angry in a neighboring town because there was some fuss about having a missile base this close to the city, and the article from Northern Pennsylvania article said, hey, well, it's the Cold War, you have to defend the country, and these are going to be the planes or the missiles that shoot down the planes delivering the hydrogen bomb to Philadelphia. So I think that Cold War mentality was such, and again, the world was coming out of World War II, fairly soon before then, that probably a golf course configuration wasn't the biggest consideration. So
makes sense.
Right.